So this is like what life was like with Granny on the reserve before going to the residential school. Granny's garden. Granny would use tubs to irrigate her plants, and it was a good cooling off in the long hot summer days. We would play in her irrigation water. I think even if I was told or prepared for what was to come, I would not have comprehended as a newly 6-year old. All I knew was that I was excited to be going to school. And I was a big girl now, I'm going to school. And the kids often ask, what did it feel like? And I tell them it was pee your pants terror. Orange Shirt Day is September 30th of each year, and it's based on my story of my grandmother bringing me to town to buy something to wear to go to school in, and I chose a shiny orange shirt for my first day of school. And when I got there, my clothing was taken away, and no matter how much I cried or protested, they took my shirt, and I do not have a memory of ever wearing it again. So this one where I'm shopping for my shirt, it says, Granny took Phyllis to a shop full of clothes with hats for your head and socks for your toes. Phyllis picked out a shirt that was so orange, shiny, and bright, and Granny bought it for her to wear with delight. And the hair was longer, and then you can see it getting cut, and then being given different clothes and being made to pray, and the Catholic rosaries, the crying in the bed at night, wondering why Granny wasn't coming to get me. There was a lot of crying. In Canada, there were 150,000 children that were taken from their homes, and so my story is every survivor's story, and everyone got their clothing taken away. Then we would be made to take a shower because they wanted to make sure that we were clean and didn't, yeah. I had lived with Granny, we didn't have running water. No, when I got there, it was to be made to take a shower. I'd never seen water coming out of the walls before. That was just terrifying for myself and a lot of the other kids. The residential school that the 3 generations attended was called the St. Joseph Indian Residential School, or simply the Mission is what we called it. And it was a Catholic-run school, open from 1891 to 1981, the same year my son was born. One of the staff members that I remember, but she said she convinced the nuns to take me to her room because I was visibly sick and I was not being tended to. It felt good to be looked after and cared for by somebody. So I always remembered that in my heart, and it was nice when I did finally find her. From the very first year in 2013, people in the States did participate.
Every year, our Anishinaabe education program tries to bring light and share knowledge and education about the importance of history and the trauma that our ancestors have foregone.
I felt very strong and resilient together, standing with my peers and with my teachers. And in this culture, we need to bring recognition to those things that did happen before us so people understand and can have an understanding about what happened and why we are doing this.
I think about my grandmother almost every single day, my grandparents, and all the pain and suffering that they went through that they never told me about, but I felt. I asked my grandmother one time, I said, Grandma, how did you make it through boarding school? And I said, they took you when you were 7 years old and you didn't come back till you were 12. And I had a tear in my eye, and Grandma looks at me and she said, I just thought I was a flower. So when I think about how these people were abused in these systems, it's incomprehensible to me that you could do that to a child.
There was no physical contact. Like, I was not abused in any way while I was there. The worst I can remember is kneeling for a very long time for my knees to be hurt, and I don't recall what I did. It had changed a lot by the time I was there. I always say my experience was a walk in the park compared to Granny and her 10 children. My story is way different than their stories, and there's awful stories of being beaten and strapped and all kinds of crazy things happening to members of our family and others while they were there. I'm third generation Indian residential school survivor. My mother went from 1954 to 1964, and I went for 1 year in 73, 74. And unbeknownst to me, my son, I have one child, I never did have any more, was at the last operating residential school in Canada when it closed in Saskatchewan in 1996. We thought that it was a hockey school, and it wasn't until the government of Canada was giving out the payments to survivors in 2007 that we found out that it was the last operating school in Canada. Everyone in our family is accounted for, and I give thanks to the Creator for that every day. However, there are many families who have loved ones that never did come home, and in some cases they don't know where they are. This is where I get to go home with my grandfather and my grandmother, and the blue bus taking me back home, and the pigtails to show that my hair had grown again.